Hello and welcome to another edition of Video Games to the Max. I am your host Sean Garmer here with me today, Randy Isbelle. Once again, thank you so much for being on again,
All right,
Randy.
who got laid off this week?
Mark didn't get laid off; he
Oh,
just could not make it back from.
I just figure if I'm here, it's because somebody got laid off in the video game industry, and
uh
that's my role
well,
here.
there was a studio closure, so I guess.
We'll see.
But
Probably
hey, you know
something.
what? One studio survived, Randy. It's the one that we talked about. I feel like for a couple of weeks, Mark and Tango Gameworks and the Hi-Fi Rush IP are still alive. They are going to another studio. We'll talk about that. That's the big headline for today. Some other stuff, along with the status of Control 2 and Max Payne 1 and 2 remasters. The other big thing is like D23 had all their huge announcements from Marvel, Star Wars, Disney, all that stuff. We'll talk about those things. The Borderlands movie sucked. No surprise to anyone, but hey, why not? We got to talk about it and more right after this.
You are listening to Video Games to the Max.
All right, so really quickly here, just to get these things out of the way, do the housekeeping. First of all, make sure you go check out Randy's show, Bad Brackets. Just go subscribe to Bad Brackets on YouTube. They just did greatest Sega Genesis.
Well, that'll be next week. Next week is Sega Genesis games.
Okay.
We recorded that yesterday. The one that dropped today, best Nicktoons of all time. And listen, we just discussed cartoons, but it got feisty.
Right? I'm sure.
It was Kumbaya for the first half of this bracket. The second half of the bracket, it got a little heated, but we had a lot of fun doing it.
Yeah, and I imagine so. There's so many those great Nicktoons from back in the day. I know when I watch it, I'm going to have my thoughts to yell about in the comments. So
right.
And yeah, definitely. And then Randy also has a surprise show that'll be hitting along with that too later on. So make sure you go subscribe because you get everything that comes on the channel. So aside from that, also make sure you go check out. I hit the wrong button again. Unfortunately, happens sometimes. I thought I hit the. But anyway, let's moving on to the housekeeping here for 32 Network. Make sure you go subscribe on the YouTube channel because if you do, you get more than what we just do here for video games. Which hey, appreciate y'all watching, listening. However many times you have checked out the show, we usually do it around Mondays. Around it's usually around like an hour later, but for Randy because he lives in the Pacific time zone, we're gonna start a little bit earlier. But yeah, go subscribe because you get if you like anime, we have a whole anime show where they review pretty much everything that comes out new with anime each week, each season. Go check out the Otaku Cafe folks over there; they do a great job. They just did a new episode a few days ago, so go check out that. And for the entertainment TV side, the Routledge Broadcasting folks, they keep up with it probably more than I think I know a lot of people do. Anything that comes out, big TV show, big movie, they've got the review. So, House of Dragon just finished. They had the review out there. They just did the review for The Boys that finished not too long ago. They had that review for Deadpool Wolverine, which I'm sure a lot of people haven't seen yet. So if you want to check out what they thought about it, definitely go do. So, perks to subscribing to the channel. You got a lot of different things here. And well, you can also listen with your ears on podcasts. I apologize. I was having some issues with the feed on our end. So I just got out I've been like 2 months behind, just got out all the stuff that was backlogged. And of course, the show that Randy did with me last week also out there. Definitely go check that out because you get our thoughts on the Bungie layoffs and Game Informer closing down, unfortunately. That happened on that episode. But let's get into the stuff for this episode. we're not going to talk about games we've been playing because I think I only played like an hour of Supermarket Simulator. Not much has changed there for me, and you haven't been playing.
I downloaded that Ender Lilies game. It's sitting there ready for me to play it. I just haven't played it yet.
I downloaded the Visions of Mana demo and then haven't played it yet. So if you're interested in that, Randy, that's out there on both PlayStation and Xbox. And then the Creatures of Ava game, also downloaded that. I played that like for about 30 minutes. So I've walked around the initial area. I've seen some of the monsters. I've taken a couple pictures. That's all I did. I don't know that I can really tell you anything other than that. Other than it seems like it's like Pokemon Snap, but like you're not stuck to a buggy maybe. And I think there is battles in that game too. It's just I think it's different in a way of like more like you're trying to save the animals, not so much like fighting with the animals, I guess. So but yeah, I'll probably have more to talk about that on next week when I actually fully play the game. But yeah, we'll have to just make this more about the news here, which I guess we might as well start with the big headline here, which is basically out of nowhere, late on Sunday evening, just blasted out there by everybody that does, keeping up with news, whether it's Windows Central, VGC, all those great folks, announced that of all people, Krafton Inc., which are best known as the publishers for PUBG, and they were also the ones that did the studio of Striking Distance, which published Callisto Protocol, which there's some issues there with Callisto Protocol we could talk about too. But they have essentially acquired Tango Gameworks and the Hi-Fi Rush IP from Microsoft, basically preventing Tango Gameworks from shutting down. Now, they are not getting to keep all of the other IP that was made by Tango Gameworks. So they're not taking Evil Within. They're not taking Ghostwire Tokyo. That stuff is staying with Microsoft, but they are getting the Hi-Fi Rush IP, so there will be a Hi-Fi Rush 2. All of the former employees are invited to return if they want. I'm assuming some of those employees already have other jobs, so who knows how many of those actual employees are going to be around still. And then, I guess the cool thing is that studio lives on instead of Microsoft shutting them down. So it's essentially, we talk about Toys for Bob just basically spinning off and being their own thing. They just allowed in their studio to acquire them instead. And then I think everything is going to stay on Game Pass, is from what I understood. Like everything is going to stay where it is. It's not going to just suddenly come off of there, according to the press release from Krafton. So obviously this is surprising, right? We were all, lamenting the fact that you're going to shut down a studio that had one of your most critically acclaimed games not too long ago. Do you have faith that? Are you happy that the Hi-Fi Rush continues? And how much faith do you have in Hi-Fi Rush 2 if, say, even like maybe half of the people come back?
Yeah, obviously you're excited that, we actually have news of a company returning or being held together as much as possible or whatever the case may be, where we're not just talking about people leaving. Very shocked that it is Krafton. PUBG was such a big thing many years ago. I'm sure a lot of people still play it. I've just fallen off of it, but obviously that's brought in enough money that they have been able to do something like that, and that's exactly what you want to see. I mean, during what was the E3 time, whatever we want to call it now, Summer Games Fest time, with creators of Among Us, helping out a lot of creators, I think that's exactly what you want to see is indies coming out, making a really big game, making a lot of money, and then using that money and their name brand to try to help others that are in trouble. And obviously Tango Gameworks was very much in trouble after being dumped by Microsoft. So this is awesome. It's very cool when you have the gaming community help out the gaming community, get away from the big juggernauts out there that are just looking at the bottom line, and whether it's a black number or a red number at the end of the day, or if that black number is just not big enough to make them feel good. So this is awesome. Hopefully there's enough people from the original Tango Gameworks that will take this opportunity and keep the gang together. I'm sure it will not be the same atmosphere as it used to be, but this is good news, and hopefully it's not the last of this kind of good news, and more the smaller game developers really start rallying together and maybe trying to cut ties a little bit with the Microsofts and the Sonys that just end up cutting everybody anyways. So this is nice to see.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I do worry about like how many of the original Tango Gameworks team is going to come back. Like how many of them are still out there. I mean, I'm sure there are many that don't have jobs yet or still kind of like we're trying to figure out the next move. Do they want to come back? Just because you are with Krafton doesn't necessarily mean that you are going to be existing for a long time, because look at what happened with Callisto Protocol, right? That game has a lot of bad history with it too. According to the main person in charge, he said that he was promised a bunch more months to work on the game, and then all of a sudden they told him, "Oh no, you're getting this out in December 2022, whether you like it or not." And
could that have been more because Dead Space remake was set to come out and they were trying to jump in front of it? Do you think that was the big strategy there?
Oh yeah, for sure. I'm sure that definitely had a lot to do with it. That they were trying to make sure that they didn't run into, oh man, we can't come out after it because then no one's going to give two craps about this game. Even though, yes, there's a lot of similarities, but there are some things that are different as well. But the thing is, a lot of people's complaints in the reviews were that it was rushed and that you could tell it was rushed. And it's not great, to get that kind of a reception to something when you've like worked so hard on it. It's the studio's like first project, and this is the impression that you're making. And and at least with Hi-Fi Rush 2, the thing is there's a lot of heavy expectations, right? Because I think most people gave it a great score, 9, 8. It won awards, best indie. A lot of it was like sound or visuals, but there was people that were giving it like their best indie game of the year. Some folks gave it their game of the year, even. So it's a game that has a lot of expectations on it. So like if you're gonna say that you're gonna make a Hi-Fi Rush 2, that puts a burden on that studio, especially if Mr. Johannes is not around, right?
Yeah, I mean, and hopefully people will lower those expectations, because again, it's not going to be the same group that made Hi-Fi Rush that will make Hi-Fi Rush 2. Hopefully, as you said, many of them will hop back on board and will get as close to the same group as possible. But the one thing for Tango Gameworks is they're now the underdog story again. Like, they are out from under the boot of Microsoft that kicked them off to the side right after their game came out and was such a fantastic success. So I think hopefully that lowers expectations, and we just hopefully are nicely surprised when the sequel finally does come out, and hopefully it's really good. But if it comes out and it has some issues or it doesn't have that same feel that Hi-Fi Rush had, because you just don't have the same innovators that are a part of the group, hopefully they don't get completely trashed and then Tango Gameworks gets booted to the side again. So lower expectations a little bit, and then let's root for the underdog to actually have a winning end story to this, please.
Yeah, that's what I'm hoping the most for, is that it's good news and not bad news.
Right.
That, hey, let's give them the time to make this game. Let's make sure that we're doing our best to give them all the things they need to make this game. They have other games, right? But when it comes to like PUBG, that's kind of their one notable game, right? That like people know them for. And yeah, some of the other stuff they have is kind of might be like small, bigger in like some circles, but it's not anything that like everybody's going, oh man, I can't wait to play this, right? So sometimes it's good that they're gonna kind of be able to do their own thing with Hi-Fi Rush now. But like, what about music? Is that gonna be taken back a notch because you don't have Microsoft behind it that might have been able to go that extra mile for that? I mean, yes, they had not just licensed tracks, but they had tracks that were original made, and you could argue that some of those original tracks are even better than the ones that were licensed in there. But is it going to be made with the same quality? And that's what I worry about is, are you going to give them that same leniency? Are you going to give them the tools to be able to make it better than the first one was and be able to make it to that like 9.5 level true game of the year type game where like, you take that step from like Hades 1 to Hades 2 by all aspects. It's still in early access by all aspects. People were saying Hades 2, far above what Hades 1 was. So can you let it take that next step? That's what I hope we get out of this. If Microsoft wasn't going to take that bet on them, hopefully Krafton does. And like you said, the most important thing out of this is that it's good news in a game industry that is full of, and we're going to talk about one today.
Yeah.
Studio closures, layoffs, terrible vibes, companies that are like having to slash things here and there because the big game that they bet on didn't do well. So that's an issue, right? And even Sony's had their PlayStation. They didn't sell as many PlayStation 5s as they thought they were going to sell. I mean, it doesn't help that they really didn't have any big, huge games that came out either. It was like Stellar Blade, and that was it in this entire quarter. But yeah, so awesome news to hear about that. But unfortunately, you know what? Actually, let's stick with the positive news for a little bit more before we get to the depressing news, I guess. Remedy, has they've been on a high ever since Alan Wake 2 got all this critical love and all these awards and everything. It hadn't made its money back yet, and but thankfully they were able to finally release a physical version, which that's what a lot of people were waiting on to finally buy this game. And now they have revealed, Remedy has, that they've recouped most of the development and marketing costs. And they've also released that Alan Wake 2 DLC, The Night Springs, a couple months ago, which I still need to go buy. By all accounts, it's actually really good. So excited to kind of dive into it, really. But they've said that they have other projects in the works and that they keep giving us updates. It feels like every couple months on where these are. And Control 2 apparently has progressed to the production readiness stage where it's now playable from beginning to end, and the team's working on scaling it up for the production of the project. That's of course the next game in the whole series. So, if you don't know, Control and Alan Wake are kind of in cahoots with each other. It's all tied into one Remedy verse. Everything has to reverse, now. So even Max Payne 1 and 2 also is sort of in that same universe. And they're doing these remakes with Rockstar, who owns the IP. And that's getting to the production readiness to full production, where they're working on a version that's playable from beginning to end right now. Later, when Sam Lake is interviewed, he says that the scope of that project is huge because they're taking those old games and bringing them up to like modern standards and everything else. So that's why those two games have taken a little bit longer, and they are still working on Condor. They have multiple maps and other things with those. So did you play Alan Wake 2 yet? Or I know you got the remaster.
I finally played Alan Wake in the last year when Alan Wake 2 first came out, and with the plan of playing Alan Wake 2, I just haven't yet. Hopefully around soon. It is wild to me though that game felt like it was so successful. It won all these awards. So many people talked about it, even though it's usually not one of those styles of games that gets so popular, especially these days. And the quote is, it is almost there to getting back to breaking even instead of a fantastic success. It just, again, we've talked about it several times, both on this podcast and just having conversations, that's just kind of where the landscape of video games is. It's gone too far in one direction, where it's gotten too expensive to make these things. It takes so long to make these games that a game that I think all of us would say felt like a success, not only from what people are saying the game played like, but it seemed like it sold well, has not broke even yet. So hopefully we've had all the crazy warning signs. We've laid off enough people in all of these different places. Everyone will now scale back, and we can get back to games just being games and not these ridiculous over the top cinematic deals. Like some games can stay like that, I guess, but I think Mark was the one that posted something about Rockstar's release schedule and how they had all these games, and then in like the last 15 years it's been 2 games because they become so much harder to make. So
Right.
it is nice, as you said, this is really good news. The Alan Wake stuff kind of surprises me, but it's awesome that they are giving Max Payne the love that it deserves. And it does sound like maybe like the Resident Evil remakes are really pushing people to push the envelope with those remakes and not just kind of throw them out and say, here, play this old game again. And you can move things around like that. It's nice to see that Control 2 is getting into that playable stage. I'm glad that Remedy is taking their time with these games. If it was EA, the game would already be out.
Yeah.
With a release of it's almost ready to be played. Just wait for the Madden reviews in a week or two. Those come out. So yeah, I'm a big fan of Remedy, even though I'm not day one with their games, but every time I go, all right, I'm going to play it. Alan Wake, I really enjoyed, even though I played it years late. Control, I really enjoyed, even though it took me a year or two to get into that game. So Remedy is becoming more and more of that studio that I'm like, absolutely, when they play that game, I have to check in on it and give it a go. So it's nice to see that they have a lot of things cooking and they're all progressing the way that they should be right now.
Yeah, not only that, but like just that it feels like there's a lot of, you can feel the love that's given to those games.
Mm-hmm.
And he gets to really make that in the image that he wants. And then also, like, because those Max Payne 1 and 2 games are technically sort of connected, but you know, they were made well before Alan Wake and Control ever were. So now he can connect them more if he wanted to.
Right.
And
I'm sure it's going to be Easter egged out.
Yeah, exactly. I want to see like where all this is going to go connected. Like I remember playing that AWE DLC and then finding out that Control and Alan Wake were connected, and it's my mind being blown of just, wow, they actually connected this, and it's like actually a whole universe thing, and it's like so cool. And they made it actually like all kind of feel like it works instead of sometimes where the convoluted MCU stuff is. So yeah, I'm excited for the next part of this. I love Control a lot. It was my game of the year that year that it came out. So yeah, Control 2. I am ready for whenever Sam Lake and Remedy want to put that thing out. I will be there day one for sure. Something else talk about like we didn't expect was coming is Doom 1 and 2, and you can actually go play this on Game Pass right now, or you can just buy it for $10. Whichever floats your boat. Is out there on everything, even the eShop. So the original versions of Doom 1 and 2 are now enhanced with like remastered graphics. That uses a different engine that was also used for the remasters of Doom 64, Quake, and Quake 2. It supports 16:9, 60 frames per second. And it can even go up to 120 frames and 4K. I'm guessing that's mostly on PC. And it also has like a new story mode that's part of Doom 2. And there's like 16-player deathmatch and co-op, cross-platform multiplayer even. So a lot of stuff added in here. The new episode was actually created by like a bunch of people from id Software, Night Dive, and Machine Games. So lots of different people like all coming together to make that, which is really cool. Deathmatch has like 25 maps, 6 bonus episodes, all of that for $10 or on Game Pass, whichever you prefer. But still, like, I give Microsoft credit. Look, they don't have to do any of this. You're taking old ass freaking games that, like, you know, everybody and their mother played at some point already,
right?
And then you're giving us stuff that I think nobody even knew existed with these games, and like bringing it forward to the modern consoles. Like that's That's cool. Not a lot of people are doing that. Like everybody's remastering everybody's doing remasters, but giving credit for doing something that's like, we didn't overprice this. We didn't try to, for $10, nothing. That's what they would cost. And here you go.
Has Doom passed Tetris yet for being remade on more consoles yet? Feels like Doom is up there where it's every couple years. Doom is being released again. And
how many versions of Doom do you own?
I don't
with
know.
all your collection.
I don't want to know. I don't want to know. A few. I know I own a few. Some good, some bad. I think I even own the Atari Jaguar version of that game. To be fair. So yeah, I have a couple.
Do you have an old game that you'd want to see? I mean, obviously this happens because it's a Bethesda Microsoft IP. You know, they're investing because they own it. But do you have something old like that like you wish you could get
I don't know. I mean, I would much rather them just come back with new stuff than bring back the old stuff. I still haven't bought it just because I haven't had any time to play anything. August at my job is brutal, as now all the colleges and high schools are ramping up to start their season, so we're doing all these previews and stuff. So hopefully I'll get to it. But speaking of bad brackets and the Genesis episode that comes out next week, I talked lovingly about Rocket Knight Adventures that they came out with a collection style deal over the last couple of weeks. So I'm excited to play those. So I want to see more collections. Right? I didn't realize, because my poor Nintendo Switch collects dust. My son plays his all the time. My daughter actually plays my Switch to play that Princess Peach game. But I just don't play the Switch as much anymore. But so I hadn't been keeping up with those old classic console deals that they have on there. The Sega Genesis ones is actually really nice. Like Wes, who's been a friend of this show and is on that episode of Bad Brackets, kept showing all the different games that were on our brackets that are available on that virtual console. So unfortunately, Rocket Knight Adventure is not on there, so you have to get the collection. But yeah, there's too many to try to list, and a lot of them have been put in bundles and stuff. But I just want to see new stuff.
I agree with you there. I do think that, as Microsoft just did with with Crash Insane Trilogy, they put that on Game Pass. That lets you play the first 3 Crash games. More things like that, right? That lets you maybe
the Turtles collection that they came out with.
Yeah,
that had all the
collection that was
stuff.
cool too.
Rare
Replay
collection
that's going to come out.
Yeah, that one too. Rare Replay was fantastic. I just want more of that. I don't want to have to buy Doom for the 37th time. But if Doom is in a collection of like a bunch of other stuff, then take my money. So
yeah, let's have an old school shooter collection and you put all that stuff in there
for sure.
But that kind of ends the
happiness.
Sure. Yeah, that kind of ends the happiness for this episode. The rest of it is kind of negative or just laughingly negative or whatever. And then we'll get into some, I guess, cool announcement stuff at the end there. But moving on to something we talked about last week, obviously it was the talk of the town last week. It was like the big news of the week, the whole Bungie layoffs and everything else. They did come out and say that, listen, don't worry about Destiny 2. We're still going to be working on that. Of course, they have to work on it. That's like their main game. If they don't have Destiny 2, what are they doing? Right now, they're going to say they're working on Destiny 3, but okay. We'll believe that when, I actually see it happening. But they are working on that other game, which is technically not a remaster of the original game. It's an extraction shooter version of Marathon, which, extraction shooters are like a dime a dozen now. So take that for what you will. But Dracious Schreier was on the Friends Per Second podcast, which is a great podcast. You also go listen to it. It has Skill Up, Jake Baldino, and oh my gosh, I can't remember her name right now. I'm gonna hate myself for not remembering the third person right now. But she's from GameSpot. She does an awesome job on it. But he was on there basically giving kind of like thoughts on the whole Bungie thing, and he was asked like, what's the thought on Marathon right now, which is the other game that people are kind of waiting on from Bungie. And he says it's not great, as you'd expect. Not a lot of faith going on right now with that company. So yeah, that whole game just has a bad vibe around it right now. He says, just even as of a few months ago, that's kind of the whole thing. And he says that he kind of feels like it could be like another Suicide Squad.
Oh,
where people kind of get hyped. Like there's a lot of hype. There's a lot of thought about it internally, but it's like a game that you've been working on. And then even though it's not doing well, you put it out anyway because you spent so much money on it that you have to put it out, and then it just bombs. And that's kind of like, that's a bad sentiment right now. He does bring up the, Helldivers 2. Nobody thought that game was going to do awesome, and then it does. Right? What do you? I know you don't. Neither one of us are probably the people to talk about or talk to when it comes to this this type of game. But what do you do you feel like that as well? Just this is what's going to happen to that game, or are you kind of trying to be more on the positive side of hoping?
It's not surprising because of all the news with Bungie. So obviously, I don't think if Marathon was doing wonderfully production wise, and it was looking like this was going to be some crazy hit that Sony would then lay off a bunch of Bungie people. They would really go full bore on this. So you knew things were going to get dumped and dropped, and there were reasons that they were making all these layoffs, and obviously you got to think Marathon is one of those. So the news isn't too surprising that way, but like you said, it's to be seen what happens here, whether it has the Helldivers 2 version of it where it rebounds and ends up having a great launch and becomes a successful game, or if it has a Suicide Squad version where it's like they start showing the game and you're like, this isn't ready, this is not what we were expecting, and then they just release it anyways, and you're like, nope, we were trying to warn you, this was not the direction we thought you were going in, and we don't want this. Or if it just ends up getting canceled, which would also suck as well. So I mean, obviously there's different paths to take. We'll see what happens, but this kind of news is very much not surprising after a bunch of layoffs for a company that one of their projects is not performing well.
Yeah, and he also brings up the whole, like, when this was shown off along with a bunch of the other multiplayer stuff during that state of play that Sony had, was last year, right? They also had that Fair Games shooter that we haven't seen any more of, but that was also being worked on. That's when they first showed off that Concord was they were working on something. The studio Firewalk was working on Concord. So that's kind of when they did the whole multiplayer initiative, and extraction shooters were a lot hotter then. Now they're not so much. And then like you're gonna have this come out a year or even two later, when it's even possible that it's even cooler than it is. That's also not a good thing, because people are going to be done with that genre,
right? More
often than not, or they're going to have that game that they play in that genre. They're not going to move to another game, especially when there's just so much negativity. It sucks again, because it's like we talked about last week. Destiny's never had more critical acclaim than it does right now with this new expansion, and then you just shove all the negativity right in front of everybody's face with the layoffs. Now, granted, the GQ gamer, the casual gamer that doesn't care about anything that happens in gaming aside from whatever game they're going to play next, has no idea probably about these layoffs and do not care. They just won't care that they can keep playing the game.
Yeah.
So maybe Marathon will, do that for them, and it won't matter what we think about it or anybody else thinks about it, because it will do well with just a regular gamer that just plays games.
And you just never know what's going to catch on,
Yeah,
and that's the fun thing is it's why creating video games is so difficult. Is you come out with your vision and it either hits or doesn't. But especially when you're working at a bigger company that is all about the bottom line, something comes out and is that big hit. And now all of a sudden, we can't work on your vision. We need your version of that big hit.
Exactly.
Because we want to have that same success. But that rarely happens. Like the big hit is the big hit. Everything else is just clones of that. And then usually dies off. And then you get laid off. And it's just that part of gaming drives me nuts.
Not to mention it just, if let's say this doesn't do well, you use them as your consultant company, your consultancy developer. They're the ones that were the ones you went to talk about, why The Last of Us multiplayer game wasn't going to do well and why all these other multiplayer games, what direction they went in. So if this doesn't do well, that doesn't bode well for using them as your your advice firm there. So that's another thing to kind of look at on that front. But all right, moving on to, we talked about, Game Informer closing down last week. And we go from Game Informer to another like beacon of giving you news, gaming stuff from people that have journalism backgrounds from and also women in gaming, just out of nowhere. Also, I don't know if I kind of could see some of it ever since they did the relaunch this year. I'm talking about What's Good Games, where like Andrea and Britt kind of came back, and Britt said she couldn't be on every episode anymore. And Andrea was going to keep trying to do it, but there was going to be different stuff that she was going to kind of throw in. And it wasn't just going to be, Rihanna, Britt, and Andrea. Andrea was going to try to bring in different things. And I could kind of see the writing on the wall of like, this feels like it's probably not going to last very much longer. Because if you've already had Steimer left, previously went to Germany, then you had, and hey, everybody grows up. All three of them had babies with their significant others, all that, became moms. That's, as we know, as dads, that's a different world you live in once you have children. More responsibility, more stuff you have to deal with, less time for yourself. And I think they probably kind of looked at the returns on all this stuff, and maybe they decided, hey, it's becoming harder and harder to get everybody together to do something. Let's end it. So they kind of put out a statement on X, Twitter, basically thanking everybody for listening for 7 years. That's a long time for a podcast, really, to last that long. And 375 episodes. That's crazy too. That's a huge number. And they're going to keep going until it's about September 27th. And then that's going to be the final episode. So they're going to have about another month and a half of shows. They thanked everybody that watches or listens or whatever. And it made me sad because it's a podcast that I listen to every week or watch every week. And as somebody that likes to, both of us have daughters, you want that feeling of letting your kids know that they can also do this, right? Especially, yourself, that you're in media. And we talked last week about how it feels like a lot of that old media is dying.
Right.
And they come from that media background, and to be able to do this for 7 years to show you that, hey, journalism can still go on. We can kind of meld that into like a talking thing and do that. And then to see that they're going to be gone now too, it kind of sucks to one more piece of that old school pie. Obviously, I didn't know much of Andrea until I watched Kind of Funny, and then she was on Kind of Funny Games Daily with Greg, and then she announced that she was doing WGG then, and then I followed her after that. But it's like, and I didn't even know Britt wrote for IGN or Rihanna did stuff with Xbox until they were all on that show together. But it's like, it's such a cool thing that they were able to do that for so long, be kind of like a big thing when it came to podcasting, and then
Right.
kind of sucks that they're having to be done with it, you know.
But this almost, I mean, obviously, I don't know these people personally by any means. I've seen some of their content, but I don't follow them as much as you do. But from their statement, it seemed like this was more of a just a personal decision, and we all
Yeah.
kind of go through that. So to me, this is, I mean, it's sad that to see a podcast like this go, but it seems like they're all doing just fine. Whether
Right.
it's with families or professionally, it's not like they're getting laid off and now what are they going to do with their time? It just seems like
Right.
they have done so well and they're doing so well, you know, personally with their families and stuff that they just don't have the time to do this, which
Right.
sucks for the viewer. And you know, that's a piece of media that we lose, and that kind of sucks. But at least this is not a layoff. This is not Game
Yeah.
Informer just kicking them out the door. This is
Right.
their decision, and I wish them the best of luck with whatever they are
I'm
doing.
sure
'Cause
they're all
obviously
going
they're
to
doing
do like
just
their own thing.
Yeah.
You know, Rihanna does the podcast with, you know, her husband Danny Pena, who's talk about podcaster, old school podcaster from back like in the 2000s days. They Gamertag Radio has been on for like over 1,000 episodes. Like, you know, he's been
Yeah.
there since from the beginning. So
Yeah.
like him and his wife are still doing that. Andrea's husband works for Disney on the game side. So
they're
like,
all they're all
yeah.
doing good. They're all doing their
Yeah.
stuff. I'm sure we will see them elsewhere. So
Yeah.
while it does kind of suck that a podcast is going away, I totally understand it. We had to do the same thing here recently with our normal sports show here. With me getting my job, it made it more difficult as far as
Right.
being able to still do that. We hope to still have like shows here and there, but just trying to figure that out. So I
Exactly.
totally get where this is coming from.
Yeah, definitely. It's just like another one of those like sucks to see kind of things. But like you
Mhm.
said, everybody's going to be probably doing their own thing. I'm sure Andrea will announce something at some point,
Right.
whenever she's figured that out, and we'll see how that goes. But I guess I don't know if this is necessarily bad or good. I don't know. But Warner Brothers again is talking about selling a stake in their games division or trying to get somebody to buy into giving them money for their games, not outright selling everything, but just kind of doing like, I guess the equivalent of Sony and Tencent putting money into FromSoft, or Tencent putting money into Ubisoft and owning like 10% of it or whatever, something akin to that.
Yeah,
Right?
come invest with us.
Yeah. And Microsoft, I think, there was a lot of rumors about Microsoft possibly being interested. Not much has happened after that. And I mean, they do have IP, right? They have Warner Brothers. They have, they have the DC IP. They have Harry Potter, Mortal Kombat. Like, they have IP that people want, right? They have the Lego games IP. So there is some in there that, like, let's say if you did get an investor, they get something out of it as well. They get some money out of the side of that. I think the more interesting part of it is that David Zaslav talks about maybe we're going to go more in the direction of letting others work on our IP. Something I think we've talked about with, like, should Nintendo maybe do this more? We've seen Nintendo do it with some of like their smaller things, like that Legend of Zelda collab with the Krafton the Necro Dancer indie dev, and they made the Zelda version of that. Do you think that, one, this would actually happen, and then two, like, do you have any games that you'd want to see somebody kind of take over and do their thing with?
No, I have no idea. I mean, maybe somebody could actually make Suicide Squad better, or at least use that IP better, I guess. Obviously, Hogwarts Legacy was a big hit, and Lego is doing just fine, and Mortal Kombat has their stuff going. But no, to me, I don't know the business end of all of this stuff or what this will do. The one thing I'll kind of latch on to was the idea that they would let other studios use their IP, and I think that's where the gaming needs to go a bit more. instead of the big boys gobbling up all of the game developers. They just have the IP and then allow the game developers to make you a game under their own umbrella, and then hopefully it's a win-win, and then people don't get laid off as much. Hopefully. That's probably not how that works at all, but I don't know. I mean, I don't play very many of these games anyways, but getting different spins on them would be totally fine. But as you said, this is very vague right now, so
Right.
we will kind of see what direction it goes. So I'm
Yeah,
curious.
it's one of those like we're gonna talk about it. We don't know if it's actually gonna happen or not, but they're thinking about it. So who knows? I mean, we've seen a lot. We've seen a lot of this, right? Where an indie dev takes a game, Ninja Turtles, oh my gosh, okay, Streets of Rage 4, like bringing back an old game that was made by somebody else, letting somebody that doesn't, they know about the game, they love the game, they love the series, but they get to do their own spin on it.
Right.
And it turns out great, right? And if you're going to let them do it, but on a bigger scale, right? Maybe like a AA version of that instead of, oh, it has to be this grand Hogwarts Legacy 2 kind of thing. I'd be down with that. I think that's awesome. Like you said, we should see more studios. Microsoft should do this with this, all this IP that they don't do anything with. Like, let these other studios do that. Like, pay them money to make something that you don't want to, your own studios don't want to make it. Then find somebody that will pay them the money. You know, nobody wants to make a Banjo-Kazooie game in your own house. Go find somebody that does. You know, like, you know how much somebody would love to have a Banjo-Kazooie 3 or whatever at this point?
Yes, 100%.
Like, yeah, it's just, I would love to see that happen more often. Obviously, it'd probably require Microsoft to kind of send people to make sure that they're actually, you know, doing right by the series and all that, but I don't think it's as much work as getting your own studios to do that. And it's a win for everyone. Yeah. Talking about showing love to an IP, lots of talk about I kind of feel two ways about this, but kind of somebody that's like maybe not so much like in the games thing as I am and loves these games as much as I do. The Like a Dragon actors recently talked about, you know, they have the new Like a Dragon show that's going to come on Amazon. And it's going to start with Like a Dragon 1 and kind of go from there. So you're going to have somebody being Kiryu and kind of doing that whole story or whatever. The actors said that the production team prevented them from playing the games in order to get ready to do these roles, right? They wanted them to have their own take on it. Their understanding was they wanted them to take their own take on it and not be imitating what they saw in the game, or kind of trying to channel the same thing that was already in the game. But then if you look at it from the other perspective, as an actor, isn't that your job to study what came before, to study what's there, right? We saw this with Ella Purnell with Fallout, right? She played the games before she did the acting, and people praised her for that. I think Walton Goggins said he didn't particularly. So it was, you know, two different forms of that, and Walton Goggins is the one up for the award right now. So what do you think, as somebody that also watches media? Do you feel like they're doing wrong by the game if they're not playing the game and they know about the games? Obviously, they know about the history of the thing, but they are not actively aware of all these characters and what they do in the game. What do you think?
It's scary when you read something like this because you're going, well, then how are they going to be able to portray my favorite character from my video game? It's not going to be the same. But I also get the other end of it where they don't want them just trying to hit those same beats and kind of not having their own interpretation of it, because that's what these are. They're interpretations of the world that video games created. They want to create their own world, and there's this fine line that is so incredibly difficult to have or to reach when you're doing video game adaptations to movies of doing your own vision of the world and being respectful to the original. Books, it's so much easier because all of those words are, for the most part, can be interpreted differently in the way that the character speaks and the way the character acts. There's things in paragraphs that will explain the base idea, but any of us that are reading have our own vision in mind, so that works in their favor. For video games, we see it, we hear them, we see how they act, and we see how they react to different situations, and that's what we then expect in these adaptations. And sometimes it works, and sometimes it doesn't. But I will also say those that try to be too faithful to a game, they don't work either. Like those that get so upset, like we'll take the Uncharted movie, for example. So many people got so upset because it's a younger Nathan Drake and Sully didn't act the way that the video game Sully did. And it's their own adaptation. And
Yeah, both of them were too young, right? Like, Sully should have been older, and
but
Drake should have been older. Yeah,
I enjoyed that movie because of the interactions that those two had. Is it the Nate and Sully from the video games? Absolutely not. But as long as you can kind of separate the two mentally, that's fine. Though it does scare you, and I'm sure you're the same way for the Like a Dragon stuff. No, you can't see how this character acts. And you're like, but I want them to kind of be like Kiryu and these other characters. I don't want them just to, okay, he has the hair, but he acts completely different. So hopefully there is like, don't watch this, but here's a detailed list of things about this character that will allow you to be close enough, but your own interpretation. People are going to get mad no matter what about this stuff. Even good adaptations like Fallout, people are like, well, it's not exactly like this, or it's not. No, it's not supposed to be exactly like that.
If they make everything exactly, then there's nothing special about it, because you could just play the game,
Yeah. I mean, listen, the Paul W.S. Anderson Resident Evils are hot garbage, but that low budget one, the Welcome to Raccoon City, that really tried to hit the story beats of Resident Evil 1 and 2 also sucked. So it doesn't matter if it's a straight adaptation or not.
Well, you wonder if they would have had the production quality that Paul W.S. Anderson movies, maybe it wouldn't have sucked so bad, because that's part of the...
No, they try to force in scenes from those two games, and they didn't get the feel of those two games.
That's true too. For one, also, it's not necessarily the actors, because remember, the actors are just being told what to do. Yes, they have to project, and they have to personify those characters, but the writing team, the creatives around them, the director, the producer, the makeup teams, the effects artists, those are the people that actually need to be able to have the source material.
Yes.
The writers, because they are the ones that are going to put the Easter eggs in there. They're the ones that are going to put the ambiance and all the stuff behind it. Make sure that he does have the Kiryu hair and the Majima patch and all that other stuff. Those are the people that are going to make sure that they honor those things if they care about it. Now, as long as they don't treat it like apparently Gearbox did with the Borderlands movie, then I think we're all good there. Look, yes, I agree that I think we've all seen what happens when you have people behind the games involved is what matters. Todd Howard was involved with the Fallout show, so he made sure that most of that was, close to the games, or presented the games well. Miyamoto was there for the Mario movie, but
Neil Druckmann was there for Last of Us.
Yeah, everybody was freaking laughing at that entire cast that was made for the Mario movie. And then what happened? Everybody loved it.
Yeah.
So you're talking so much crap about something that hasn't even come out yet. And yes, there's still a lot of bad stuff, as the Borderlands movie will show you. There's a lot of good stuff that's made with video games now. So I don't think we need to just all of a sudden, just because one thing happened, we need to kill the movie. But hey, this happens with Marvel all the time and Disney all the time, where oh, you're miscasting and you're doing this, and you know,
and it works out or it doesn't work out, and who knows until it's actually out there. And listen, video game movies are so much, or TV series are so much better than they used to be on average. Borderlands apparently knocked down that average a little bit, but on average, at least we're getting some that are good. That used to not be the case at all.
And I also see the fact, I think also you don't want to run into the thing that you had with, which is a good thing. He loved the books to a fault. The guy that did The Witcher, I can't think of his name now. Superman, all that stuff. He loved the books to a fault, to where he got in the director's face and basically told him that this is bullshit, you know? And it's like,
that's not good either.
I think that's what they don't want to run into either. You don't want to run into somebody that's so passionate about the series that this isn't right and that's not right and this was not right, that like you can't even do what you want to do, your vision of it, because somebody's there constantly telling you, you know, what's wrong and right about it. So I think you got to be careful with that too, right? So it's better to like let them kind of be framed by whatever it is. Again, it's not on the actors, it's on the people behind the actors to make sure that that's right, and you don't get too carried away with doing your vision and not like being right by the stuff, right? So yeah, I guess let's bring it up, because Borderlands movie was so bad that it apparently did terrible at the box office. I think all it made was like 50 million. And then it was critically panned everywhere. Just bad reviews all around, saying basically that it's heartless, soulless, the jokes are terrible. I mean, the jokes of Borderlands are terrible anyway. Like it's trying to almost be a joke of Borderlands. There's like nothing about that kind of really respects what that is. And then of course, Randy Pitchford uses that to jump on it to be like, hey, don't worry, we're making a Borderlands 4, by the way. In his own way. He says, oh, we're doing this. We're getting ready for you with the 4 spelled out.
Hey, you gotta take whatever publicity you can get to turn it as positive as you possibly can.
Look, it's what did we used to say back in the day? Like, this is the thing I saw and I was like, oh, this is a rental, right? I'm not going to the movie theater to watch this. I'll watch this when it comes on streaming or whatever. I kind of sort of care about Borderlands in a way, but yeah, I had no interest in seeing this, even though I like Jack Black. I love Jack Black. I like Kevin Hart, but it's like I saw those in the movie and I was like, oh, we're just trying to do Jumanji.
Yes.
The new Jumanji again with other people. And it's like, that's probably not going to work.
Yeah, the moment you start getting the ridiculous list of actors and actresses in this movie, usually there's a sign of this is going to be hot garbage, but we're going to try to distract you with these big names. A lot of animations do that these days, where it's like, here's a list of 15 amazing actors and actresses that did voices to our movie that absolutely sucks, but please remember that these cool actors are in here and still give us your money.
Some of them are there for like 2 lines, but hey, they're in there.
Yes.
You know, come watch it, please.
Yeah, disappointing. Not surprising, but disappointing.
Exactly. Speaking of disappointing, even though a lot of people didn't like Order 1886, I still like the idea of it. I still like the ambiance around it, right? I don't know how you felt about it, Randy.
Really liked the Order 1886. My big issue with a lot of other people was it was too short. I just wanted more of it. I was hoping this would take off, then they'd get a sequel, then we get the real game. Like, well, it was like I'm usually not one that comes
It was
on
like
here
a
and goes,
5-hour game.
I'm usually not one that says length matters with the money that you're getting in. But for all of the different things that they were trying to do and the different systems that they had in this game, it was so short that you only did it once. And you're like, well, this is a cool concept, so let's do it more, and then the game's over.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to see more of it. I thought visually, especially for when it came out, that it looked fantastic. I really just thought that it was all right. Here's like a tech demo for this game, and now get ready for the second one. And then everyone panned it because it was so short, and it kind of just went poof, which is disappointing.
It is, and that studio has a good track record. I mean, they made 3 of the best PSP games: Daxter, God of War, Chains of Olympus, and Ghost of Sparta. Then they went on to make Order 1886, and then they went into VR and made Lone Echo and Lone Echo 2. And they continued to do things with VR, being bought by Meta in 2020. And unfortunately, Meta is now basically encouraging the employees to go apply elsewhere because the studio is going to close. And they did say that it doesn't have to, they're not just like, killing their home games division, and they're not going to start, cutting other studios. They're just sadly closing down Ready at Dawn.
Mm-hmm.
Sucks to see that.
It's not surprising. Unfortunately, this was news that honestly, when I saw this in the notes, I went, that they're still around.
Yeah.
So you would have thought they would have been cut a long time ago.
Yeah, it's rather unfortunate, really, that has happened with them. But I hope that they, everybody finds new jobs quickly. And again, VR itself is not doing tremendous. I mean, Meta's keeping it around.
Yeah. VR just didn't work.
Yeah. People keep trying with it. Maybe someday somebody will unlock it and we'll get to that Ready Player One future, but it's not happening anytime soon. But hey, at least Disney had their big D23 thing. They didn't really have anything gaming related, unfortunately. Like, I don't know what. I guess maybe they're just putting that all at Gamescom. I thought it was weird that the only thing they showed off gaming related was like Fortnite. But everything else, well, collabs with Fortnite, I should say. Everything else was about their movies and TV shows.
They were a little busy showing everything else off.
Yeah, but I would have thought like maybe, have Square Enix have like something with Kingdom Hearts ready, or
no, you could calm down with your Kingdom Hearts stuff. It's not ready till the Game Awards, sir. You have to wait till Game Awards to see anything about that game. Maybe
give it a few more months to get going. But hey,
and I meant Game Awards 2027.
Oh man, don't make me wait that long. Come on. By then we'll have Rebirth Part 3.
Yes, exactly. Let's get that out of the way before we get back into Kingdom Hearts, please.
So just to roll this off, and then Randy, you can kind of give me whatever you care about here. So got Avatar 3 getting the name, which is Fire and Ash. They are continuing. This is not ending. They're continuing with the live action push. So there's a live action Lilo and Stitch, live action Snow White that has a trailer, live action Lion King 2 Mufasa, which that makes sense with the live action Lion King being like what the fourth most grossing movie ever, which is ridiculous. The Rock is going to be in a Monster Jam movie. I'm not kidding. They're still doing the Moana live action movie. And then there's now a Tron Ares, which is quote unquote Tron 3. And at least on the good side of things, there's a Moana 2, Frozen 3 and 4, Incredibles 3, Toy Story 5. And then there's some original stuff with Pixar getting to do that Elio movie, which I think is their next movie. And then Win or Lose, the TV series, which is about baseball. And then Dream Production with a TV series about Inside Out, with the different types of dreams that I forgot her name. The kid has.
Oh shoot, yeah. I can't think of it.
I
either,
haven't
but
seen
I
Inside Out 2
just watched.
yet. So
I watched Inside Out 2 that first weekend. I just can't think of her name.
but yeah, anything jump out at you?
None of the
With
live
that?
action stuff.
Yeah, not for me.
Lilo and Stitch, maybe. I
Right.
will hold judgment just because I'm a big Lilo and Stitch fan. But we'll see how that goes. The Snow White trailer looked horrible.
Yeah, you got CG dwarves as
I
well.
know that there was a lot of drama with the dwarves and what was it? Peter Dinklage went up against Disney saying that they should not use actual dwarves for this movie, and then other little people got upset about it. I know Hornswoggle was one of those. I've seen an interview with him where he was really pissed off by Peter Dinklage saying, "Hey, don't take work away from me just because you don't want to be a part of it," kind of thing.
Right.
But it looked horrible with the CG dwarves in that movie. That's just stupid. We'll wait and see. Moana 2 looks cute, but we'll see where that goes. I have no interest in Frozen 3 or 4. Never watched the second one. Incredibles, that's fine. I love the fact that Toy Story 5 is such an early development. They didn't even have voice acting for their teaser. It's just, here's Woody and Buzz, and no, they're not talking because we haven't recorded anything yet.
Well, it's probably because they don't even know if Tim Allen and Tom Hanks are going to do it again.
So we will see. Win or Lose looks cute. I might check that one out. But yeah, as far as the Disney stuff goes, this was a lot of stuff that they showed. A lot of it just feels like, okay, we've used all of our IPs. What do we do now? Yeah, well, I guess we'll get into the 4s and 5s and the live actions. And I wasn't the biggest fan.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm down for an Incredibles 3. Hopefully they take more from the first movie than the second one. I was one that I was not happy about Toy Story 4, and then that movie wound up being really good. So
I've gotten to that point. Just give me more Toy Story. Apparently, every time I was like, why are we doing another one? Oh, yeah, because it's good. Okay, I got it.
I don't care about Avatar. No. I know I'm Tron. Give me all the Tron you want, so I'm down with that, and I'm cool with Moana and Frozen. I know I forgot Zootopia too, another one that's made, and I was very happy that there's a Zootopia too. So, Star Wars. Thankfully, they've kind of dropped down on the Star Wars stuff. They are not overdoing it with that now. There's a kids show, Star Wars Skeleton Crew, The Mandalorian and Grogu, which is going to be a movie apparently, and then Andor season 2. That's all they did for Star Wars.
It's always weird when they have TV series and then they throw a movie spinoff in there, and then you have to figure out where that goes in the timeline. But maybe it just works out better.
Were you a fan of the Andor?
I never watched the first season of Andor, so I got burnt out by then.
Okay, I don't blame you. Yeah, I did like Andor a lot, so we'll see. Then of course Marvel, where they've also kind of pared it down some, thankfully, but this is a lot of the stuff that they still had cooking before they started canceling stuff.
Right.
X-Men 97 season 2, no brainer. X-Men 97 was amazing. Marvel Zombies, which is a spin-off of the What If Marvel season, which that's still going. What If season 3. There's Eyes of Wakanda, which is a Black Panther spin-off show. And then your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man, which, you always got to have some kind of Spider-Man animated thing. So whatever. Mm-hmm. That should be good. Those are always good.
Yeah, the animated Spider-Man. Animated Spider-Man always works out. So
Agatha All Along, which I'm actually kind of excited about. I haven't been too into the Disney Plus shows for a while, but the Agatha one I've kind of been into because WandaVision was actually really good. So, and I like that character. It's
crazy that WandaVision. I mean, Loki's been good. I still need to finish season 2. We're a couple episodes in. But season 1 of Loki, I don't want to say ill will of that. That was a very great show as well. But like WandaVision came out and blew your minds because it was the it's like you start watching, you're like, what the hell is this? This isn't Avengers like we were thinking. And then it had all these twists and turns in it, and it just was fantastic. Obviously, Wanda in it or Agatha in it was a great twist. So while the trailer hasn't sold me yet, I'm definitely going to watch this just to see what kind of twists and turns they add to it.
Yeah, Daredevil Born Again, that looks like it's going to be great now, especially now that they've tied it to the original Netflix show, which they weren't going to do at first, but now they are. Captain America Brave New World, the more I see of it, the more I'm kind of getting excited about it, especially now with like Red Hulk and all that stuff. I wasn't at first, but now we'll see. Before we get to like, that time in February, we'll see how it goes. Fantastic Four: The First Steps looks interesting. I guess we'll see more when we get to it. And Ironheart, I don't know. Yeah.
Can a Fantastic Four anything finally work? Because a Fantastic Four
if you
anything
finally have Marvel involved and it doesn't work, then just forget about it. But.
TV shows, spin-offs, movies, Fantastic Four just never works.
We'll see, because the main villain of Fantastic Four is going to be your main villain for the Avengers movies. So we'll see how that goes.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah. But that's the announcements from there. Some good stuff. I think the thing that I enjoy the most is that they're not like overdoing it now. It feels like between this and Comic-Con, they have like 50 things that get announced, and I'm like, holy crap.
Now we're down to like 35.
Yeah. let's cool it a little bit on that. But all right, before we get out of here, as is customary, I guess let's just kind of look at some things that are coming out in this week. And of course, the biggest one, Randy mentioned it, Madden NFL. It's amazing that we now have 2 Madden 25s.
Yeah, that's true. I think I have a Madden 25 over here somewhere.
So we have the anniversary Madden 25 with Mahomes and Brady on the cover. And then now you just have Madden 25, the regular version, I guess.
Wasn't it like Calvin Johnson on the Madden 25 cover?
Man, I don't remember. I thought they might have had multiple covers. But I swear I thought
I was the wrong lion in my head. Barry Sanders was on one of them, and Adrian Peterson was on the other.
Oh, okay. But yeah, so if you're in, preseason's already started for the NFL, and college football is about to start this weekend. So, get ready for your stuff there. And then aside from that, the rest of it is kind of, of the smaller fare.
Yep.
Green Hell's coming to PS5 and Xbox Series. If you like that game, you definitely can go get it in your new systems now. The Devil's Playhouse 7 Max remaster coming to everything. That comes out in a couple of days. Kena Bridge of Spirits finally comes to Xbox. So you've been waiting to play that.
Yeah, we need a sequel to that already. Sony, let's go.
I know, right? Yeah, Sony, let's get going with that. Dredge gets another DLC with the Iron Rig. I really like Dredge, so if you do as well, go get this DLC. And and Overboss as well. This Godfather, the Mafia Pigeon Saga. It's also looked interesting every time I've seen it.
Interesting.
It's like a Godfather take with pigeons. It's hilarious. And then next week, that Black Myth Wukong that people have been waiting on, the next Souls-like that's gonna maybe take something away from Elden Ring. Who knows? A lot of people are excited about it. So it's not coming to Xbox for a while because I guess Sony at the last minute paid some money to keep it over there. But it will come eventually. And then of course that Concord and the World of Warcraft expansion is coming out towards a little bit later.
That Rugrats game comes out this week too.
It does. Okay.
Speaking of Nicktoons and bad brackets.
There you go.
My name. There you go.
See? Yeah. All right, Randy. Well, give us one more promo here for bad brackets.
Bad brackets every Monday. I do a 24-item bracket every single week. Bring on 3 of my friends. Sean's on there several times and just torture them. As far as how bad my bracket is, and they have to figure out who wins it all. Again, Nicktoons was the one that just came out today. It started out so friendly, and ended out so poorly. And as Sean did allude to, Sega Genesis games for those gamers out there. That will be next week. And then also next Thursday, we're debuting a new show called Bad Brackets Eliminator, where it's more of a trivia style thing. Just a 1-round test for now. Maybe we'll expand it out. But I just wanted to come out with a shorter little episode throughout the week just to try to give us some more content. So we'll see how that goes. We've recorded the first episode, but that will be out next Thursday.
Well, hopefully it goes well, because you always want to see, go give Randy a subscribe, follow, all that stuff.
I appreciate it.
And well, we'll be here next week on Monday. We'll see if Mark finally comes back home and joins us here for the next episode. Hopefully it'll be a more positive one, not so much negative talk here as it seems like it always is every week with games. But hey, at least we got the one nice thing with Tango Gameworks. So until then, everybody, like, follow, subscribe, all that stuff. Listen on podcasts or watch on video, whichever we do appreciate it. And we'll see you next time.